we realized, me and the chaplains, that the number one healing environment was the outside. Now, we knew this anecdotally, but today it is statistical. Getting outside, out of isolation, amongst friends and families and Americans, in a 5-hour setting, in nature, has an effective healing rate of over 70%. It's better than any psychology setting, and it lasts forever.
Well, welcome to another episode of Discover Seguin. I'm your host, David Pope with Bernard Donegan Insurance, and I'm here today with Craig Russell, the Executive Director and founder of the SS American Memorial Foundation right here in Seguin, Texas. Craig, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about the SS American Memorial Foundation.
Well, the foundation evolved out of a event that started basically in 2000 on July 4th.
Okay.
And that is when 13 of my veteran shipmates that I'd served with 15 years prior in the Navy.
Okay.
On a fast attack submarine out of Pearl Harbor.
All right.
We came back together for...
It's not a bad duty station.
No, not at all. But we came back together for our first reunion.
All right.
On that date. We held it every year and came back together on 4th of July every year. And we celebrate our 25th year. And now is a state championship barbecue cook-off. But the event held every year, we opened it up to friends and family, and it grew from 13 to upwards of 1,000 people in attendance. In the early years, it was a week-long live music, shindig, we called it. RVs, everyone came in and made it a vacation.
Okay.
And then about 2007, meaning my veteran shipmates, as we were kind of looking out at the audience and everyone having a good time for 4 or 5 days, war's in full bloom. And we realized that nobody really knew what the 4th of July was about anymore. So we turned it on a dime in 2008.
Okay.
In 2008, they all showed up and we changed it to a memorial service.
All right.
Without them really even knowing.
So they thought they were coming for a barbecue cook-off, and it was a memorial.
It was a memorial service that one of my Marine friends that was CEO at 8th and I up in Washington, D.C. They run all the events for the White House, the Marine Corps up there. And he'd run that, and I said, I want you to put on memorial service like you know how to do it, exact, precise. And we're going to teach the guests what the traditions mean and what they're about. And so we actually called it the reading. And basically we were been hosting a 20-foot by 30-foot old garrison flag in the trees that started in 2005 out there. We'd hang it up during the event. And so at this event in particular, before we raised the flag, we had a podium and a stage and everything. Everything was precise. They were all seated in a certain manner, all these upwards of 800-something people in attendance. And we would read the history of the flag first before we'd raise it.
Okay.
And then before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd read the history of the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we'd sing the Star Spangled Banner, we'd read the history.
Oh, wow.
We had the taps. We'd read the history there. We had the 21-gun salute, read the history there, because we'd have a processional come in and put all the flags in place and everything. And then we also had a POW MIA table.
Okay.
And we'd read the history of how all those unique traditions in our country started.
Right.
The program was only about an hour. Very solemn, very exact to the military letter. So you have to understand that when our event started with a bunch of veterans or a group of veterans, by this time, it's probably 70–80% is civilians
Yeah.
in attendance.
Right.
And so they've never really seen a lot of this stuff going on as far as what happens in the daily lives of the military on posts and processions and stuff like that. And then the following year, we incorporated a history of a conflict.
Okay.
So it'd be a 10-minute history lesson on a specific conflict, World War II,
Right.
Vietnam, whatever. And that was it. And then we incorporated the following year, we incorporated a guest speaker. And this event in particular was a World War II veteran. By now we're up to 2012.
Right.
In your time. And this was a World War II veteran. He was 93 years old. He had served during, obviously, World War II, but he'd served the country for 72 years.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, at age 93, he was still consulting to our country, working with the CIA and Naval Intelligence at 93. And anyway, he spoke about his time served in the service during World War II. And he capped it off on where the culture was at the day, and this 2012.
Sure.
And the old timer was exact. He was specific. I mean, very clear. And he basically just told the audience that that we weren't teaching history and sacrifice, how the country came about, and because of it, that if we didn't start teaching history and the sacrifice it took to get to where we're at, living in freedom, that we were doomed as a society. So this is 2012.
Yeah.
And of course, I think we can all agree the culture was rapidly changing.
Rapidly changing at the time.
Day to day,
Yep.
day to day,
Still.
day to day. Yes, still. Oh, yeah. And so after that event, immediately following that, people came up to me and basically were saying comments like, my life has been changed. After these events, we always had a big potluck dinner. Everyone brought a dish. So the cook-off started being we would cook the meat.
Right.
The veterans would, just the meat, and the side dishes would come from the people. But you got to understand, this was a 100-foot table by this time.
Right. You're saying
And big
800,
tent.
900
Yeah,
people.
big tent.
Yeah.
But out there at the location, the old family ranch, it sits on the Guadalupe River, and basically the way it's all set up on this 4th of July, they're overlooking the river. It's a beautiful, beautiful visual, very solemn, just peaceful place. But my old father-in-law, who was a teacher here, him and his wife both were teachers at Seguin High School, retired from it, James Jennings Olbrick. This was his homestead. He had built a building right next to the house where everyone actually sits during this thing overlooking the river. It was unfinished all these years. There's only 4 walls. It's 2 foot thick. He's an old German. Had a basement. He did it all with a bucket and a shovel.
Okay. Wow.
For 10 years, them Germans were
Yeah.
energetic, and he was an old throwback. So the building's set unfinished. And anyway, right after this event on 2012, after this gentleman spoke, we're all making our way, the 800-something people are going up past the house, past this old building that's set there. It looked like an old abandoned fort.
Yeah.
Kids played in it, and it's kind of the standing joke,
Sure.
When is it ever going to be finished? And so as we're walking, the crowd was very quiet. It's hot July. I'm dying, and I'm tired. It's been a long work up to this thing. Making our way to the potluck dinner under a big tent. One of the old veterans popped off and said, "What are you going to do with that building?" And I just happened to throw it back. Everyone could hear it. And I said, well, I'm going to put a roof and an air conditioning in it and get these wounded out of this heat. Because you got to understand, by this time in 2012, I had in 2011, I kind of got back up. 2011, I had approached BAMC and let them know that we had a beautiful place on the river. It's 30 minutes out the gate, right off the highway. I'd heard they needed to get the wounded in the open air.
Yeah.
And so I just went down there and just let them know it was for use.
Okay.
Because we lived there as a homestead. Beautiful lawn, though, about 2 acres overlooking it, all shaded up and everything. And so they had been coming out. Their medical team had been bringing mountain vans, and we're talking all the amputees. It was quiet. Nobody in the local community knew what was going on. I didn't put it out to everybody. At that time, the Wounded Warriors, in my opinion, had been commercialized a lot.
Yeah.
And they were literally tired of it. So that was kind of my commitment when they came out there. So no one will know you're here. And I work now, me and my wife both. So they would just use the grounds.
Yeah.
But this is where they learned to walk during the war, to use their prosthesis, archery, being on the river, kayak fishing was a big part of their rehabilitation for wounded.
Okay.
It's one of the, if not the activity that all wounded, whether you're a double amputee or a triple amputee, they can all sit in a kayak. And so it was probably the most rehabilitative activity for the wounded. And of course, we had all that frontage and kayaks and stuff.
Sure.
That made it beneficial.
This is all going on during Iraq and Afghanistan war.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
War on terror, if you want to call it. And so by this time at 2012, they're actually there under a tent. We had them all tented up. There's about 40 of them. We also had about, I think, over 20 World War II vets in a tent facing the audience. And so when I made that comment that I was going to put the roof and air conditioner to get these wounded out of, that's where it came from.
Gotcha.
Because I'd been working with them on basically a weekly basis coming out to our place. Anyway, when I made the comment, everybody heard it. And so over the course of the next 2 years, people from the event started sending me and my wife checks, unsolicited, and big checks.
Yeah.
And when I'd get the check, I'd ask them what they want me to do with it. And so it took 2 years to build. And actually, people flew in from around the country and did everywhere from concrete to rock work to woodwork, to name it. Area high schools, especially at right out the road where my daughter went. Escaping me. In Geronimo. What's the school? Navarro. So a lot of the high school, because they were part of that event for years, so they helped build it. But today, we dedicated in 2014, and it became a memorial. And we dedicated and opened in 2014, and it is the only private living war memorial in the world.
Wow.
And so this is where the wounded lived.
Okay.
The ranch had grown now with the wounded and their programs. It was open 24/7. And now we're up to 2014. And now the wounded a number of them have transitioned out, and now they're living on premises.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Downstairs, upstairs, in their RVs, and they became part of the daily event as the new wounded came in. A number of wounded had transitioned out of service, and they asked my family if they could come live. And we did. We opened it up to them. And so they became part of the daily event as the new wounded came in, teaching them what they were going to experience when they went over. You have to understand that while the wounded were coming out, by now the base had gravitated to it. This is all run by the chaplaincy when they come out. You have to understand that.
Okay.
Anytime they go off base, it's run by the chaplaincy. They're called spiritual fitness days, just to get them out, fresh air, stuff like that.
Okay.
It had migrated across Fort Sam Houston with the other chaplains. Fort Sam Houston, a lot of people don't realize it's a sizable base. In fact, it has over 70 chaplains.
Oh, wow.
Most of them are attached to different battalions.
Right.
And so as it migrated across the base through the chaplaincy, then the trainees started coming out. And the trainees at Fort Sam in particular, for all branches, are the combat medics, corpsmen, combat medics.
Right.
So now you had all the trainees coming out. And so at the end of the day, they were either getting ready to go to war or coming back for war. and healing for more. From 2011 to 2019, over 25,000 active duty soldiers came through our location.
Wow.
Started out at about 2,000 a year, jumped about 3,000, 4,000, and then peaked at about 5,800 in 2019, right prior to COVID.
Okay.
Again, none of it was planned.
Yeah.
None of it. It just grew on its own organically. In 2016, though, because the donations were still coming in. I remember we weren't a nonprofit. We were just a family.
Sure.
And we were taking that money and building this thing. And then after it was built, there was still some money. It wasn't a lot of money by this time. But then I decided, well, I went to the chaplains. I said, I got some money here. What do you want me to do with it? Can you use it? And they said, yeah, we have needs on base for soldiers in need. There's a lot of them in need. And I found out then, through just trial and error, the needs of the servicemen through the chaplaincy. And one of the problems they were having back then and now is that there's a lot of soldiers in need. You got a lot of families with 5 or 6 kids. It's not unusual for a chaplain to call me and say, I got a mother here, 4 or 5 kids on base, hasn't eaten in 48 hours, they got no money. That's not unusual, okay?
Wow.
And so I was taking this money, running it through the wounded, because I couldn't get on base, but the wounded could. So they'd live out there, and we would literally spend it off in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Cash.
That's pretty quick delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what was happening is that,
right away.
yes, there's many organizations on base. There's, everything from USO to all these organizations do good
Sure.
work. But the process, the red tape and everything, by the time the soldiers get it, they're desperate.
You can just bypass all that.
Yeah, they're
Just
desperate.
go straight to it.
Yeah. And so anyway, that became one of our programs. Was
Okay.
helping the soldiers.
Yeah.
So 2016, the money was still coming in. Met with my CPAs and financial and legal that had been part of the family out at the ranch for 25 years. And they said, Greg, it's time that you probably start considering a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I'd sat on many boards of nonprofits, been in the civilian organization, give back programs from Lions Club to whatever it's been all my life. And really didn't want the minutia of the nonprofit.
Yeah.
But we did.
Well, yeah,
and so I got my shipmates that had started with me, and they became on the board.
Okay.
And we formed the nonprofit in 2016, the SS American Memorial Foundation. We absolutely did it. We named it specifically SS. People always ask. It stands for Ship Submersible. We're submariners.
Yeah.
And so that is SS is a designation for a submariner in the military community. And we didn't want it to be just a veteran organization, because our event was an American event. So we specifically named it American Memorial, because it is for all Americans. It's not just for vets. I mean, during the course of all this period going on, local schools used it, Navarro, Judson ISD, your Christian schools, they all came out and used this location for their programs, whatever it was. And all of this has always been, and it still is today, free of charge. Well, my family has never charged a dime. Our foundation doesn't charge a dime. We don't have any paid employees. And since 2000, over 47,000 Americans have been through our gate free of charge.
Wow. Through your family ranch.
Yep.
47,000.
For these events.
Wow.
And we've held over 5,000 events.
Okay. So what all kind of events do you end
They're
up hosting
retreats
out there?
They're retreats.
Okay.
And it's respite. So that's what the retreats are for the military. But there are also the same retreats for your churches, VFWs, American Legions. They come out and they'll schedule 5-hour retreats, because that's what the military did.
Okay.
And they just enjoy the day.
Yeah.
So they're barbecuing, they're fishing, they're kayaking, canoeing, volleyball, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They're just enjoying the day. Ironically, during this time, and COVID kind of turned it on its head to a whole nother level of, I guess you call it dysfunction,
Yeah.
is that the isolation that it created. We knew, my board members, which were submariners, we knew what isolation was going to do. So we stayed open.
Okay.
Probably one of the only places in America that stayed open in 2020.
Yeah.
Now, the military didn't come out. They locked them down on base.
Sure they did.
But we kept the gate open. We didn't pronounce it or nothing, but we kept it open. We had been doing a Freedom Friday once a month
Okay.
during the war. And what that was a transitional night. The hardest part for a veteran, especially a combat veteran, is to transition into the civilian community. So we started hosting a once a month open to the public, where the public could come and be with the wounded, that would help them transition, get used to civilians.
Okay.
So we did that once a month during the war. And then when COVID hit, we decided to open that. We called it Freedom Friday. It was the second Friday of the month. And we had live music, and we sold drinks and beverages and everything like that. And again, it was basically from 6 to 11. And they would come out and enjoy the evening. There would be cooking and everything else. And that went on through the whole war. But during COVID, we opened it up every Friday night. And so they had cornhole. And now these are all civilians for the most part.
Right.
So weddings, funeral services that the base wouldn't let them have, VFW, American Legions, churches, church services, every type of event you can imagine was held out there, all free of charge, and the way they wanted to, free.
Wow.
They could wear a mask. They didn't have to wear a mask. It didn't matter to us.
Sure.
We never had one single incidence of anybody coming and reporting that they caught COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so historically, we're confident, and this is from the chaplains as well, that we were the only place in America that really did this level. And again, you fast forward to that event, and what it did, it drove people in. You know, over the years with the chaplains,
Yeah.
once we opened up the memorial, there was a requirement with the chaplains, because the memorial is very distinct. It's very visual. While we didn't know what we were going to do, but as the 2 years went on and it became a memorial, then we started having a vision on what we wanted this thing to look like inside. So to put it without understanding the full scope until you see it, it is probably one of the most astounding visuals of American history that you will find anywhere, in a footprint that's only 18 by 22 foot inside.
Okay.
All right. It is so overpowering that it is not uncommon for people to come in and literally fall to their knees crying. It's that powerful. It is extremely powerful. And when we opened it, we realized that it was capturing people's attentions. And me and the chaplains, I sat down and I said, if I'm going to come out here and do this at my leisure, and at that time I had the time,
Yeah.
then they're going to sit here for the hour presentation on how Americans built this for them. We're going to stuff them in here at 40 at a time. We actually put a video together that's half of the hour presentation on how the place was built, how the country came together,
Yeah.
and it shows the sacrifice of the military community. So when the soldiers would come out, and anybody that used it, they had to go through this.
Oh, okay.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So during that time, over 17,000 soldiers at 40 at a time came through that building for that presentation.
Oh, wow.
And what was the turning point for me and my family, me and my wife, in making a foundation, making it permanent,
Yeah.
was when the chaplains reported back in 2015 to me, came out, visited, and basically said, we've noticed something happening on Fort Sam Houston. And what we've noticed is the chapel has started filling up. And when we started quizzing the soldiers as to the why, They said it's because they came out to our location inside the memorial. They visited with me 6 months later, just prior to 2016.
Right.
They said the chapel is full today. We're doing 3 to 4 baptisms a month, and we owe it all to the day coming out to your place. And so you have to understand during that time, and even today, the chaplain is not the chaplain of old. In fact, during that time, it's changed here just in the last year, or last 6 to 8 months, just on different policies.
Sure.
But the normal veteran of old, anytime they had a problem in the military, they were sent to the chaplain.
Right.
Today, they're instructed to go see an attorney. So the chaplain had very little say-so in being a chaplain then and today. In fact, it was so pronounced during the war back then that I was in a meeting with the chaplaincy, with the outgoing colonel, head of the chaplaincy, and he basically told them all that you better get with organizations like ours, civilian organizations, because he didn't know how long the chaplaincy would be around anymore.
Oh, wow.
Now, historically, to put that in perspective, people must understand that our country, and that's what's inside that memorial, it has a visual of the Judeo-Christian history of our country, how it was founded. Doesn't matter whether you believe of a believer or not, but it is the history. And what people don't realize when they question that history, they have to understand the chaplaincy. The chaplaincy is the oldest corps in the military. It was the first corps. George Washington's first corps was a chaplaincy. So it's the foundation of this country. And that's what's in the building. It's not there to prophesize. It's not there. It's a historical tour of our country, good, badder, and different.
Right.
And let them know that it's still the best country in the world, even though we made many mistakes. And that's what is in this memorial, and that's what we were teaching.
Yeah.
It's just the blatant history of the good, bad, and indifferent, and how Americans came together and still come together to give back.
Oh, what an important message for a veteran. I mean, who's been over there serving, who's been fighting, and then to not even understand or be able to make the connection of, well, why was I? What am I fighting for? What's the value of that is immeasurable, right? I mean, you're sacrificing things that you can't even imagine you would sacrifice one day for something that, if you don't have a connection to the roots of it, and have a connection to what it is.
Well, what's interesting you say that is that the culture of today, and the chaplains and I knew it, and that's why we started the memorial service, because no one understood the history. What we found with this generation that we have today, and not just the generation, even the older ones have forgot it, okay? Because it's not being taught at any level. What we really found is this culture today, when they learned, because they didn't know, that one of the most interesting feedbacks over the years was these soldiers go, we didn't think anybody cared. Things like that. They just, and we didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
Or we went in the military thinking that this visual in this room was going to be tradition. Well, the traditions have been removed so much from the military, which was built on that literally it's been turned upside down. And so when we realized out there that we were changing hearts and minds, and it was working.
Yeah.
So today what happened through all of this is that now, as the war is moved, it's gone in, stopped in a sense, in 2020. Now we're in post-war, and post-war looks a whole lot different than wartime. Now we're getting ready for those 700,000 returning veterans with their problems. That generation, tremendous war fighters. But we found when they came home, they've had more problems transitioning than any other generation into the civilian. So much so that during the periods of 2001 to 2020, 2022, we lost 37,800 soldiers to suicide coming home. During that same time, we only had 7,500 combat-related deaths. Now, what's
That's
more
staggering.
what is more profound, okay, is during the same period of 2001 to 2022, America, citizens, we lost over 900,000 to suicide, setting a record in 2023 of 49,000 plus, to exceed that in 2024 to the highest level since World War II. Wow. So it's not a veteran problem.
Right.
We have an American problem.
It's a culture problem.
Yes. And it really gets down to our motto.
Yeah.
That has been removed. Doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. But when God, family, and country was removed, we started failing as a society. Meaning God is the history. Whether you believe it or not, it's still a history book. And then when he was removed, the family unit started failing. And when the family unit started failing, the community started failing. The country. Very simple.
Yeah.
And so, through the testimonials over all the years, written and verbal, we realized, me and the chaplains, that the number one healing environment was the outside. Now, we knew this anecdotally, but today, it is statistical. Getting outside, out of isolation, amongst friends and families and Americans, in a 5-hour setting, in nature, has an effective healing rate of over 70%. It's better than any psychology setting, and it lasts forever. And so now what we're doing is we're expanding this. We and my wife have pledged a total of 70 acres to the development of a one-of-a-kind nature therapy park that is no longer anecdotal. It is statistically valid that people getting outdoors, because nobody does it anymore. Number one, it costs to go to a park.
Right.
It costs to go everywhere. And we're limited, or we don't want to get out.
Right.
But we do know that once they do get out and they experience it, that they generally, 99% of them go back. And so we're expanding this footprint today. We have a $10 million capital campaign that started this year. We put together a planning committee of 2 years ago that made me meet every quarter, of contractors, engineers, therapists, doctors, lawyers, teachers, educators. We meet every quarter for a 2.5-hour working lunch. We have a master plan. It's got walking trails, 4 or 5 miles of walking trails.
I've seen it. It's a very impressive plan.
Yeah.
And very ambitious.
Yes, yes, yes. But, we're putting up a sizable asset towards this.
Yeah.
It's coming together extremely well. Now, you could say, well, there's lots of parks, there's lots of things, but there's never been one built like this. Never.
Yeah.
Literally, we're reforesting. Texas A&M is involved on the reforesting side.
I saw some of that.
Yeah, we've got
Reforested pine trees even.
Yeah, give that green, year-round greenery.
Yeah.
All right. Pine trees used to be around in this area. They were just timbered out. But we're tunneling down into how we're building it and the reforesting of it. We're also doing a rainwater catchment system for what we don't have here.
Right.
So it'll be the first type of park that is literally rainwater catchments throughout it. That's actually being designed by Texas State University, the students. So we went to the education system and got them involved. In fact, I just got out of a handing out 3 scholarships last week with the University of Texas, San Antonio, their marketing group. So they've come in and their students just put together a marketing program for funding, social media, and awareness.
All right.
And so they had a contest.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it is about education.
Yeah.
And for our location, you look at our website and everything, it is about education, because through education we can heal. And that's really what we're doing. But at the end of the day, when we build this, we're not only just building this location. One of the unique things that happened at the end of the war, if you want to call it, was as they were returning, these soldiers, they were writing me or calling me and saying, "Mr. Russell, I remember when I was there 3 or 4 years ago. I remember how it made me feel. I've got 24 acres up here in Kansas, 100 acres here in Michigan, and 60 acres in Oregon. We want to give back like you. Can you help us and tell us how to do it?" So what we're doing at the end of the day is we're building a template.
Right.
And it'll be a booklet where we can hand off, here's the how-to, from the financial, from the marketing, to how to build it all out, down to the last detail, free of charge, that they can start building what we call God's real church, where people do want to come back to a place that's outdoors and not into a building no more. People are just not gravitating to to Christianity and ministry no more.
All right, so about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing. We're capping it with a template, a book that shows other people that might want to do this, to spread it across the country.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Craig, I've really enjoyed our visit here, and I've enjoyed getting to hear about what you guys are doing out there. I'm excited to come and see it. I'm excited.
Well, I look forward to having you. And it's one of those things, until you see it, you just really can't understand it.
Yeah. So tell me, how would folks here in Seguin, apart from maybe their kids being in school or something like that, how would they get to know opportunities where they could come out and experience the memorial themselves?
Well, we do have an email that you can email us. It's on the website. It's just american@amemorial.com, or .org, I should say.
Okay.
A Memorial. And they can request. It is a private location. We're going through a transition right now. In fact, we closed for this year totally.
Okay.
For a number of reasons: drought, trees falling down, a lot of maintenance and upkeep, and we are building out. So we did close for the year, reopening next year in March is the plan.
All right.
But I take people all the time that just want to come out for a tour.
Okay.
So all they have to do is email. I actually office on the ranch. So I'm very flexible to be able to give those tours. And I encourage it, whether it's groups or individuals, because it's one of those things that I know that until you see what we're doing and visit the place, it's just almost impossible to imagine what it really looks like, especially within the memorial.
So there's no barbecue cook-off this year?
No, we are having the cook-off.
Okay.
We are having a cook-off. We let that tradition. That will be cookers move in on June the 27th, so the last weekend of June.
All right.
The actual competition will be on the 28th. You can go on our social media. It's under a Firecracker Cook-Off, SS American Memorial Foundation Firecracker Cook-Off, and we have a page.
All right.
And it'll tell you how to sign up if you want to cook.
Okay.
If you don't want to cook, but you'd like to attend and be a judge, again, send an email, and we could give you instructions on how to come out and be a judge.
All right.
We are looking for sponsors for the event. So those that want to, we are a 501c3, so we have the full tax benefit for it if you want. At the same time, on the sponsorship, we started a long time ago. I did not like the word sponsor or corporate sponsors or stuff like that. The beauty of our place, or the uniqueness of the location, was, remember I told you in the beginning, people gave unsolicited.
Yeah.
And for me personally, and my wife, because we never asked for anything, they gave on their own, and still do today. We have not. We had our year end last year. We hosted our first in-house fundraiser ever.
Okay.
Never had one.
Yeah.
It's always been through unsolicited donations.
Unsolicited donation.
Same through with the corporations. Companies like United Rental provides all of the equipment out there for maintenance and everything. It has from the beginning. I never asked them. They showed up.
Wow.
So we put together what we call an Allied Forces. I'll throw back to World War II.
All right.
And it just says coming together as one. So to be in that Allied Forces, a sponsor that donates 10,000 or above permanently goes and becomes an Allied sponsor. It goes in all of our literature, all of our Facebook, everything we do, and it's permanent. Meaning their name in there. Again, they become part of that team.
Okay.
Because one of the other things that we do is we give organizations out that we feel are legitimate, meaning they're in it for the real reasons.
Sure.
Not just for the commercial side of it. And so you'll see organizations that we're affiliated with that they wouldn't be with us if we didn't feel they provide something to the community or the individuals in particular. So anyway, that's how they can get a hold of us. They just go online there, send me an email. I look at them personally. We do have a full board, 12 working members. In fact, the incoming second vice president and the new executive officer are former vets that ran BAMC, Sergeant Major, Brooks Army Medical Center.
Fantastic.
So the newer generation's coming in.
There you go.
So anyway, but I thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. And man, I'm looking forward to seeing your place. Looking forward to folks, if you have questions or interested, we're going to put the all the information in the comments below there or in the notes. And you can reach out to the SS American Memorial Foundation and to Craig and his team out there, which his team is really just him and his wife. They're just running this thing and doing this with a lot of sweat equity, no paid employees, but doing a lot of good work out there. So if you're interested in seeing more stories like this, please be sure to like and subscribe and whatever the things you do with all of these podcast deals. So thank you for joining us again on Discover Seguin.